Sarah and welcome to Listen Able, the corner of BookTube where we discuss all things accessible reading. Today's video we're going to be discussing 10 books that I feel are made better when listened to via audio. Now I know that books are really good when you just read them, but I think sometimes a book is made even better when there's a really good narrator and they bring the story to life. Now with those books, there tends to be a pattern. They all tend to be written in first person, and I think it's because it gives the actor that chance to really bring those characters to life and add nuances to those characters that you wouldn't get just from reading that book. So with all that being said, let's grab a cup of tea, get cozy and get on with the video. First up, we've got an incredible series, and that's The Dresden Files by Jim Butcher, read by James Masters. Now these books are wonderful. James Masters brings Jim Butcher's stories to life, and I couldn't imagine Harry Dresden in any other way. Now the first book, Stormfront, is the first book in a 17 book series, so there's a lot of growth across this series. I know a lot of people will tell you that the first couple of books you should just read and they're nice as standalones, but then as the story starts to progress, Jim Butcher really grows the series and there are lots of interweaving threads that really bring the whole series to life. So the first book, Stormfront, focuses just on Harry Dresden, and he's a wizard in Chicago, and it's urban fantasy. So for most people, they don't believe in magic, they don't believe in wizards, but he's a wizard for hire in Chicago, and often he finds himself working with the police solving mysteries, and that's just what that first book is about. But what makes the series most special is listening to James Marston land Jim Butcher's humour, the jokes, just the way he brings it all to life. And I'd love it if you could read a few of the books and see what you think of the series. 12 Months, the 18th book in the series, is due to release on January the 20th, 2026, and I personally cannot wait to see where the series goes from here, because at the end of that last book, oh my goodness, so many tears. I'm really excited to see what Jim does next. Next up, we've got Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst, and this one is narrated by Caitlin Davies. And in this book, we follow Kyla, and Kyla works at a library with her trusted spider plant Kaz, but unfortunately, during a revolution, the library is burnt down. So what happens is Kyla is forced to flee the library with some of her library books and Kaz, and she goes to the city that she was born in, and it's a tiny little island where her mum and dad lived when she was a child. And Kyla decides she's going to open a jam shop, but also that the village needs a little bit of help, so she's going to use some magic from the books and see if she can do that. Now what I love about this series is how Caitlin Davies brings the characters to life, because not only does she do a fantastic job with Kyla herself, but the side characters of Meep and Kaz, their voices are just fantastic, and that little bit of spirit and that little bit of excitement that you get when you read them, and the tone of her voice and the way it's like a warm hug surrounding you, it just makes it the perfect read. If you enjoyed The Spell Shop, I'd really encourage you to pick up the second book in the series, The Enchanted Greenhouse. Now this is also narrated by Caitlin Davies, but it's just a fantastic book to read as well. So maybe it's worth picking that one up too. And what I love about this series is the plants are the best part. Our next one is The Rivers of London by Ben Aronovich, and this one's read by Cobner Holbrook Smith. Now this series is fantastic, and it follows a police officer, Peter Grant. Now it's an urban fantasy set in London, and London is the ethos and the vibe for this whole series, because Ben Aronovich's knowledge of London is just exceptional, and it really brings the books to life. Peter Grant is a normal copper until one day he sees something magical that he doesn't quite believe and he doesn't know how to explain. And from there, he's thrust into a world that he just couldn't imagine, and he meets another detective who helps introduce him to this world and brings it all to life and explains what's going on. What really makes this series is Cobner Holbrook Smith's performance. I love his deep, sultry tones, and he really brings Peter Grant to life, but also the way he puts in all of those really nice bits of information, the facts, and his humour that goes with it from Aronovich's writing style really works in this one. Book 10 in the series, Stone and Sky, was released just in July and is a really good book. But also what I do enjoy about this series is we've got about 7 or 8 novellas to go with the 10 novels that are in the series, and I really enjoy Abigail's side of the story too, and that bringing all of those different parts in, and especially in this last book where it's written from 2 perspectives, where most of the series is just written from Peter Grant's point of view, has really helped flesh out this world and bring it to life. This next one comes from a genre that I hadn't really tried before until I read this series, and then I fell in love with the books, and that's Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinnerman, and this one's narrated by Jeff Hayes. Now, these books are fantastic. They're lit RPG, which is something a little bit different for me because I wasn't sure how I'd feel about that idea of leveling characters up like you get in a game. But actually, what makes this series exceptional is Dinnerman's ability to create a world that isn't just about levels. It's also about what's going on in the greater universe, and bringing all those tiny story threads in that he does over 7 books, because we're getting on now and the 8th book is due for release hopefully May next year, which I'm really excited about because I have read all 7 of these books and I loved every single one of them. And every time you read one of these books, that story, that outer story, gets bigger and bigger and the world gets more exciting all the time. Now, Jeff Hayes does a fantastic job of bringing not only Carl to life. Carl's our main character, and what happens is he goes out of his house one night to get his cat, Princess Donut, from outside because she's tried to escape, and as he goes outside, the whole world collapses and these portals open, these staircases open, and you either go into these dungeons and compete or you die. So he chooses to go into these dungeons with his cat, and he's forced to fight goblins and demons, and all of the levels are different the further down he goes. And that story is incredible, and it just builds and builds and builds. And Princess Donut has become one of my favourite characters in any book. For a cat, she is so sassy. Jeff Hayes does an incredible job of thrusting the reader into Carl's mind. The way he hits the humour, the way he hits the tension, the way the battle scenes are read, he just creates tension and intrigue and excitement, and you can really feel Carl's exasperation as he's being put through this impossible situation. To be honest, he is in something that he's never experienced before, because nobody would, in a world where there's no right decisions and everything you're doing is so nuanced, especially the more you get into this story. It's such a good read and it's such a good listen, and I can't imagine listening to it or reading it in any other way. Our next book is Kingdom of the Wicked by Kerry Maniscalco, read by Marissa Kalin. In this series, we've got 2 twin sisters, Amelia and Victoria, and right at the beginning of the book, Victoria is really brutally murdered. So Amelia decides that she's going to solve this murder, and to do that, she's going to summon the Prince of Hell, and she summons Wrath to help her solve this murder. And the tension between these 2 characters and the slow burn is epic. And Marissa Kalin does a fantastic job of voicing these characters, and that's because the book is set in Italy, and Marissa Kalin puts a beautiful Italian accent on the story and really brings Amelia to life, and she really helps drive home that Italian feeling that you get from reading these books. But also she reads it in a way that makes it feel slightly dark and slightly spooky, which really leans into the vibes in this story, because obviously we're in a really dark world, we're in hell, and we're also in a really, really dark situation when her sister's just been murdered. And the books just run from there in a fantastic completed trilogy. I'd also just like to add that on the side of these, Kerry Maniscalco's also released some other books, The Princes of Sin, and they're going to run side by side with the original series, and they're really also good books, so I hope you'll pick those up too. The next one is The Murderbot Diaries, written by Martha Wells and narrated by Kevin R. Free. These books feature Murderbot, an AI who manages to hack his governor module and is now free, but instead he goes out as a Medabot on hire to protect a group of scientists as they go out to discover some new technology in the world. And the story goes from there. And the book focuses on the struggle of Medabot as he learns to communicate with humans and deal with the new emotions that he can feel without his governor module. What Kevin R. Free does to this series is exceptional. He is able to give Murderbot life because you get that really nice, stringent AI voice and you can feel that it's a robot thinking, but you can also hear the emotion and the conflict that Murderbot goes through in the story. Now, the books have progressed because obviously we're 10 books in at this stage and the new book is scheduled for release in May. It's not confirmed yet, but I'm really excited to see where the books go from here because Kevin R. Free has done such a fantastic job of bringing Murderbot to life, and I think it'll be incredible to see where Murderbot goes next. Next up is House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune, narrated by Daniel Henning. In this series, we follow Linus Baker, a children's protective services, but not for normal children, for magical children, and he's sent by the head of the company that he works for to investigate a children's home with some of the most dangerous children in the country. There, he meets a gentleman, Arthur Parnassus, who runs the children's home and just wants to protect the children, and the story goes from there. Now, what's incredibly good about this series is not only TJ Klune's ability to write that really warm, cozy, and it is cozy, it's such a hug in a book, this one, that it melts your heart. And that's made better by Daniel's ability to soften his voice and make that you feel those emotions. I love the found family aspect of this book because obviously you don't just have Linus and Arthur, you've got the children, and the children are what make this series. Their personalities, you've got the devil, a gnome. There are so many different children that you just can't help but fall in love with them all. And this series is something that's definitely worth a read. And as well as this book, you've got the sequel book, Somewhere Beyond the Sea, which is just as magical, and it's something that's well worth a listen to. This time we've got a fantastic romantasy series, and it's Guild, the first book in the Plated Prisoner series by Raven Kennedy. This series is narrated by Bella Samby and Harlan Kovo, and this series follows Oren, and Oren has been turned to gold by King Midas because this book is a King Midas retelling, and the first book is really uncomfortable. I found it really strange to read it because it didn't sit right with me. There were lots of things that sort of made my skin crawl, and part of that's being brought to life by Bella Samby's ability to really make you feel those characters' emotions. The book should make your skin crawl. It should make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. There is a mystery going on. You're not sure why King Midas is the way he is, and that emotion and that drive in the story is what makes this series magical. And then from there, the books open out, and I don't want to spoil anything, but there is an incredible romance with one of my favourite MMCs, Slade Ravenger, and I really hope that you'll read this series and fall in love with these characters as much as I did. I'm going to discuss some of my favourite romance books next, and it's actually 3 duologies, so we'll just discuss the first set, and that's The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jensen. These are narrated by Lauren Fortgang and James Patrick Cronin. The Bridge Kingdom, for those that haven't read it, is based on Laura, and Laura is sent by her father to go and kill the king of another kingdom. So she goes on a wedding day to marry a man she's never met as disguised as her marriage, but really she's going to murder him. But when she gets there, she meets this incredible king, Aaron, and actually the romance starts from there, and then she realizes that perhaps killing somebody is harder than she thinks. Now, what I loved about the audio for these books is Lauren really brings Laura to life, and James does a fantastic job with Aaron. So this is a little bit different some of the others because we haven't just got one point of view in this book, we've got two, and that really helps create that bit of magic because we get the two sides of the story, but we get the two parts of this romance coming together, and those characters are so well fleshed out across the two books that it just makes you fall in love that little bit more with each of them. And the stakes in this book are so high that it's unreal. And then the series is rounded out with a fantastic second book, but also then you get spoiled because Danielle L. Jensen hasn't just written one duology, she's written three. And those second two duologies are just as good. They're both narrated by different sets of authors, so all of the characters have their own voices, which means that you can enjoy all of the series because I've read all 6 books and they are all fantastic. I think they're also all free on Audible. So if you've got an Audible account, there's no excuse not to read these books and pick them up, because what could be better than 3 finished duologies and all for free? So I really do hope that you'll get these ones. Finally today we've got Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. This one is narrated by Sophie Aldred, or at least it is in the United Kingdom where I've read it. In the US it's narrated by Susie Jackson, and that's an interesting point because some books, depending on the region, the narrator will change, and that might change the performance of the book. So for me, I found Sophie Aldred really brought Skyward to life, and she did that by making Spencer really fleshed out. And Spencer is one of my favourite characters in literature because Skyward is such a good read, and it's supposed to be YA, and it is, but I think some of the themes that are in this book really lend themselves to a more mature reader, and you really do get to enjoy reading it from that slightly older perspective. So I'm not saying that a younger person wouldn't enjoy it. I think sometimes an older person just sees the story in a different light. And Sophie Aldred did a fantastic job with Spencer. Spencer is a spitfire. She's feisty, she's keen. All she's ever dreamed of is being a pilot. So to her doing that, it's her life, and she doesn't have anything else. But at some stage in the book, she discovers some of the characters, and they're brought to life fantastically as well, because Embot is one of my favourite companions in any book, because to bring a computer to life in the way that she did, it's just epic, and it's so immersive and it's so fun. And this series is definitely worth a listen to. And there's 3 books in the series, or 4 books, I think. There's 4 books in the series, isn't there? 1, 2, 3, 4. So there are 4 books in the series, and I hope that you'd listen to them all because they are fantastic. And also there's the spin-off series that's not been written by Brandon Sanderson, but they're even better. I really enjoyed all the novellas that go with this series. They're well worth a listen to as well. That's it for some of my favourite books that are made better by audio. I do hope that you've got some fantastic recommendations today. If you've read any of the books, please drop a comment below and let me know what you thought of them. And if I've missed any books that are better read as audiobooks, please let me know what they are in the comments below too. As always, if you enjoyed the video, can you please like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next one.